Hey, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Got lots of stuff to cover today. One really important piece of information that has come to light very recently this week is it's a big old disappointment for those of us who were at least hoping in some way, in some regard, that there was at least some semblance of our justice system that was at least willing to follow through on actual rule of law and upholding and defending our inherent and inalienable fundamental rights. But once again, apparently that was a bridge too far. That was an expectation that was much too high. And of course, I was kind of already hesitant to even think that it was going to turn out positive or beneficial to liberty because once again, I've seen this ain't my rodeo. This ain't my first rodeo, folks. I've seen this kind of stuff play out countless times over the last, over a decade now. And yeah, the Supreme Court justices in this country, they basically avoid and are basically absent when it comes to anything that would set actual precedent in full-throated defense of our liberties. Once again, it's just a reality. I'm sorry, it's not my fault. I didn't choose any of these fuckers, right? And you can't blame me for even voting for any of the parties that have instilled them because no, you can't blame me there either. And it's just a reality, folks. And once again, I don't know what we're going to do. We got to try our best, right? You can't put your hands up. Once again, I've never been black pilled and I never will be. Once you've given up, well, I mean, you might as well just hand over, the enemies of liberty. You just might as well hand over, any semblance of your willingness to fight for these things. You might as well just give it up entirely and just tell them, hey, here's the W, you win, I give up, I surrender. And once again, that's not even something that's within my bones. There's not a fiber in my being that would ever resort to just giving up or giving in. So I hope you folks feel the same way. But anyways, we're going to get to covering some of this stuff. But first and foremost, I just wanted to maybe I'll bring it up actually while I've been doing some interacting with someone from Switzerland, I would assume, because the name of their profile is Swiss Libertarian. And I'm actually kind of hoping to actually have a conversation with this person. But anyways, let me bring it up here. Let me bring it on the screen just to show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, let's just make sure all is good. Yeah, I see it. I'm sure you folks must see it as well. So let me go back to, let me just actually click on the link. And then we'll go to, wait a minute now. That's not what I was looking for. There, maybe it's going to properly load this time. Well, it's taking its time. Back to the same thing. Oh, wait, here we go. Here we go. So actually, this is the full exchange. So let me throw on the old spectacles here. Read this. So I had shared this back. When did I share this? Back July 20th, 2024. And it was a quote from, well, I had shared this, right? About, and you folks seen the whole video I did in terms of how the massive growth of the public sector, right? I mean, it's horrendous. I mean, it's up to the point now where 1 in 4 Canadians are employed by the government in some capacity, in some form, right? That's bad when 25% of your population, is reliant on the state. Yeah, good luck in at least that 25% of your population, right? And that's, once again, a certain portion of the population who's going to be very active in terms of keeping the system or the ruling establishment in place, right? Because they're the ones who are benefiting from it, obviously. Anyway, so like I say, I had shared a screen capture of just how massive the public sector has grown in this country, especially in recent years under the Trudeau Liberals. And then I shared this amazing quote by Frederick Bastiat. The state is the great fictitious entity by which everyone seeks to live at the expense of everyone else. anyways, so Swiss libertarians. So the Canadian government sector actually employs more than 25% of the entire workforce. That's about the same ratio as for France. No wonder both countries tax more than 50% of the total GDP. So this was once again Swiss libertarian chiming in. And actually, no, I had to correct actually here. It wasn't 1 and 3, it's actually 1 and 4. I corrected that down here. Anyway, more than 25% or 25% is horrendous. In Switzerland, we used to be at around 10%. I think it increased to about 12 to 15%, which already made things much worse. And there's where I corrected the 1 and 4. Anyways, yeah. When it reaches 12 to 15%, it becomes a horrendous burden and then a self-feeding monster. That's so true. Anyways, what do you think of my summary of direct versus representative government? Note that government is always a problem, but direct democracy mitigates some of those problems. It should be possible to convince people to adopt direct democracy, which has a proven track record of working well. From there, it is possible to achieve even more reductions of government, e.g., via one famous initiative. The Swiss people voted to limit government spending by prohibiting the adding more than 3% additional debt per year and imposing an obligation to reduce existing debt. That was the main reason why Switzerland managed to maintain a somewhat sane budget. So anyways, folks, this is something that I'm interested in. Obviously, I'm not a fan of democracy of any form or any shape, right? But this is actually something that I think I would really enjoy delving into with someone such as this Swiss libertarian here. And I'm trying to set something up like that. And I'll get to a little bit further down where we got to wait until this person gets their situation sorted out before that can even happen. But I do want to have a long form discussion, a live streamed long form discussion with this. I believe it's a gentleman as it pertains to democracy, whether you're talking about our kinds of constitutional democracy or parliamentary democracy, or in this case, a direct democracy. And I'm really, really interested in having that conversation. But let me just scroll down a little bit more. And this is where I actually mentioned, are you interested in joining me to discuss this during a live stream that I will host? Sorry, I didn't see your question sooner. Yes, I guess we could do that, though I do have some logistics issues these days. No problem. I usually do my live streams on the weekends. So anyways, I just got to let this person know I'll do that after. Or actually, let me just do it right now. So I had to move recently and the internet connection here is not stable. So I first have to make sure I upgrade the connection. How do I best contact you? Do you use Mine's chat service? You could use it to send me a number I could use for future contacts. Mine's chat service. I do believe I can do chat. Anyways, actually, yeah, rather than me do this right now, actually, I'll wait till this live stream is over. But yeah, so obviously I'm going to, reply to this individual, and hopefully at some point in time, we'll be able to set up an interview or a conversation, some dialogue, hammering out these ideas, right? And this is obviously something that I'm very interested in, is discussing ideas, things that actually have a real direct effect on our lives, on our liberties, right? On our fundamental rights and freedoms. So I'm really interested once again in having this discussion, and I'll let you folks know, once I do get something set up and when that date will be. Anyways, back into the chat, or back into the original content that I wanted to cover. So let me actually just do that right now. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to cover this. Let me bring it up. Here we go. Present. So I'm not sure if you folks have heard yet or not, but if you haven't, you will now. So here we go. This is from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Just one of, what is it? I think we have three main ones here in Canada: the Canadian Constitutional Foundation, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and I believe it's the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, which is just like the American Civil Liberties Association is. Yeah, I don't know. Their idea of defending liberty or freedoms is sometimes a little bit at odds with the typical libertarians or people who challenge statism or the state, right? But anyways, we won't deal with them just today because, well, they're not the ones that is covering this particular subject matter. Anyways, so once again, this is from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. It was posted on August 29th, 2024. Just says media inquiries, media at jccf.ca. So here we go. Let me just get into reading this a little bit here. Ottawa, Ontario. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is disappointed to announce that the Supreme Court of Canada has declined to hear the appeals in 2 cases that challenge the federal COVID vaccine travel mandate. The cases are Peckford et al. V. Canada and Honorable Maxime Bernier v. Canada. The Justice Center supported applicants in both cases. The applications for leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada were filed separately. The Honorable Brian Peckford, former Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, was an applicant in one case along with 5 others. Mr. Peckford is the last living signer of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. The other case was brought by the Honorable Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada. In both cases, the federal court held the issues were moot because the vaccine travel mandate has been rescinded after the cases has been filed and cross-examination had occurred. But prior to the court hearings, dismissing a case as moot means that the court has found that its decision will not have a practical effect and that it is not worth the time and effort to decide the case otherwise. In regard to the COVID vaccine travel mandate, however, at the time the federal government rescinded the vaccine travel mandate, the Minister of Transport had threatened to bring back the mandate without hesitation. The applicants argued that the doctrine of mootness ought to be reconsidered by the Supreme Court because emergency orders, by their nature, are evasive of review, resulting in no oversight by courts or elected legislators. Hearing these cases would have allowed the Supreme Court to determine whether it is appropriate to allow governments to evade judicial scrutiny of their decisions made through emergency orders. Unlike legislation passed by Parliament, emergency orders are made through cabinet orders and are protected by cabinet privilege, meaning Canadians cannot learn the reasoning behind the decision. And once again, I mean, I just got to point out, yes, of course, the Supreme Court, if they gave one iota, gave a shit about actual defendant or stand in full defense of our inherent and inalienable rights and liberties and freedoms, then yes, of course they should have taken on the case instead of playing this is what I mean. This is the problem with legalese and our current justice system, the way it's set up, is there is a myriad of ways for them to evade, deny, or just ignore being placed in positions to actually have to make those difficult decisions in terms of, you know, whether it's right or wrong. And I mean, it's quite common sense, quite reasonable to understand that based on the fact that the Emergencies Act affected millions of Canadians, of millions of Canadians who lost their jobs, their livelihood, you know, their ability to provide for themselves and their loved ones, right? And the fact that, you know, the emergency order, not only did it have that kind of effect, but it also, right, when they brought the emergency order in, or the mandates, but the emergency order went even above and beyond that and actually caused people to have their bank accounts seized and people to be locked up and in prison for stupidity, for just defending and standing up in protest against authoritarian mandates and government overreach. So the fact that the Supreme Court is willing to walk away or ignore this and not take up this case to set precedent, once again, it is just more evidence that solidifies the fact that they have no interest whatsoever in standing in defense of your freedoms and liberties and holding government to account. See, that's the whole point. Or at least that's the narrative. That's the message we were all told. The reason why we have all these different levels of government, like, so the legislature, right, the House of Commons and the Senate, and the PMO, so the president or the prime minister's office, right? And then you're supposed to have the judges, like the Supreme Court of Canada, which is supposed to be the supreme law of the land. Those are all three of them are supposed to, or actually all four, if you talk about the House of Commons and the Senate as being two different levels of the legislature, right? These are all supposed to be, you know, redundant layers of protection. It's supposed to be, look, we have all these ways that's going to, be a bulwark or a backstop against anyone that tries to creep up or any portion of the government tries to step in and override your inherent and inalienable fundamental rights. But as we're seeing today, none of them, right? Neither the House of Commons, well, I mean, because it now is being dominated by a minority government that's being propped up by, Jag Meat and his NDP, right? So, and you know how hard they've been going at in terms of completely stripping Canadians in a multitude of ways, fundamental rights and freedoms. And then you're seeing, once again, the Senate hasn't really done anything, hasn't been any good, especially even when you're talking about some of these, freedom of speech laws or anti-freedom of speech laws and infringements, once again, on our ability to speak freely or to navigate through the internet unobstructed and without being spied on and all that stuff. Once again, no layer of the government, and not even the judiciary, not even the Supreme Court of Canada, none of these folks have done anything remotely resembling what their positions entail, which is supposed to be there to stand in defense of our freedoms and in defiance against government overreach. Once again, they failed all of us a multitude of times. And I mean, I don't know how much more it's going to take before more and more Canadians realize that, you can't rely on the system to defend your freedoms, right? No, your freedoms, the only way they're ever going to be defended is if you and a whole lot more of your other fellow Canadian citizens are willing to stand in defense of them yourself. Trying to offload that responsibility onto government or any bureaucracy or any aspect of government, any layer of government, well, once again, it's shown time and time again that's going to fail you and fail Canadians every single time, almost without exception. I can't say 100% of the time. There might be the odd time, but once again, even for every one time they do any small semblance of standing in defense of your freedoms, the amount of things that they let slip by just completely overwhelms and envelops anything that they've supposedly done that would be beneficial to defending freedom. Let me just continue reading on a little bit more here. Lawyer Alison Pejovic says the case was of paramount importance to all Canadians, and they have been denied the right to know whether the federal government acted lawfully in preventing them from traveling and leaving the country based on their refusal to take a novel medication that failed to prevent transmission of COVID and that has caused death and serious harm to many people worldwide. Well, once again, we know that it was unlawful. I mean, at the very least, we know Mosley, the federal judge, did say that no, the Emergencies Act, was unconstitutional and unreasonable and completely infringed our rights. So there's already precedent there. But once again, that was a single federal court judge. The Supreme Court of Canada should have solidified that by taking up these cases and making it known, right? And at least doing something to put the Trudeau Liberals in check and to make sure that this kind of stuff never happens again under any future government. But once again, no, they're skirting, they're avoiding the responsibility, which is what they're there to do. That's why they get those big paychecks, is to stand in defense of our fundamental rights and freedoms. But once again, they've walked away and said, no thanks. So once again, you take that message and stew on that for a while. You take that message with you. Think about that. Think about it over the weekend. Think about it as long as it takes for you to finally come to realize that, sorry, folks, the only one that's going to help defend your freedoms is you and other people like you, right? People like us. It's up to us. And we need, it's true there's power in numbers, but once again, so far, we're still not in the kind of numbers that are needed and necessary. Deeming cases challenging draconian emergency orders that harm millions of Canadians moot damages confidence in the justice system and undermines the rule of law. Yeah, that's no shit Sherlock there, right? Here's a little background. On August 13th, 2021, the federal government announced its intention of implementing a vaccine requirement for traveling on planes, trains, or ships. The government, led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, did this 2 days before announcing a federal election, essentially making it an election promise. After winning a minority in Parliament, the Minister of Transport implemented the mandate on November 30th, 2021. Both the Peckford and Bernier cases asked for the federal court to strike down the mandate as a breach of Charter Section 2, 6, 7, 8, and 15. The most significant breach was to Charter Section 6, mobility rights. All applicants were essentially barred from traveling across Canada in any practical manner and could not leave the country. In Mr. Bernier's case, this meant he was essentially barred from campaigning. Of note, on cross-examination, a government bureaucrat admitted she did not receive any medical advice to implement such a mandate. It was done solely on the direction from the Minister of Transportation and the federal cabinet. Just a few days after cross-examinations concluded, the government ended the mandate on June 20, 2022. Both cases were dismissed by the federal court as moot in October 2022. The subsequent appeals were dismissed by the federal court of appeal. So once again, this is multiple layers of government that said, oh, well, since the mandates are not in effect any longer, well, we're just going to say that's moot and move on. So once again, completely unwilling to take up these cases to actual set a precedent and be that bulwark against government overreach in the future. So far, they're unwilling to do so. So as it stands right now, there's nothing to stop this government or any future government from, once again, imposing these draconian mandates or Emergencies Act against us with very little to deter them. Very little to deter them. So anyways, I'm just going to stop sharing that, kind of jump into the chat here, see what you folks are saying. By the way, thanks for joining the stream. And for anyone that isn't watching this stream live, once again, it will be uploaded to X, Rumble, and YouTube, all for you folks to see. Actually, I'll probably post it over on Facebook too, just so you folks that follow me over on Facebook get a chance to see this as well. Hey, what's going on, GTO Mama? Good morning, Bennett. Good to see you. Yes, good to see you too, GTO Mama. Thank you for joining the stream. Really appreciate that. Pause does not equate moot. Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. Of course, I understand. You understand. But apparently these very highly educated, supposedly well-to-do, right? The elites of society, these judges, they don't seem to grasp what you and I can grasp. What a strange thing, right? What a very strange thing. Yeah, I'm quite disturbed by all this. I really, really am. It's to me, I just like I say, it's causing me to feel a little bit defeated today. But once again, things can change, right? Humans, we do have free will. We can turn things around. But once again, it requires a substantial, not a majority by any stretch, but a substantial portion of our population to get off their duffs, right? To get off their duffs and at the very least show some solidarity. Even if you're only doing it in the digital form on social media, even if you're unwilling to do anything in your physical space, right? Although I would recommend you do that as well. But anything that anybody can do to show at the very least that you're on the side of those of us who are standing in defense of liberty and speaking out about this kind of massive government overreach, right? And massive infringements, continuous infringements on our fundamental rights. We really, really, really need to get those numbers of Canadians up instead of constantly hearing about the political bantering and back and forth, the whole left versus right, because that's what I'm seeing these days. That is what I'm constantly seeing. It's like in my face on a regular basis now. Most of the people now who take up the big amount of space, occupy most of the dominant, live streams or videos or podcasts, right? Who are in the alternative media or those who are against the status quo of the establishment. What I'm seeing time and time again is, yes, they're definitely against, the current establishment and the current ruling class, but it almost seems as though they just want to replace one with another, right? I don't hear many of them, right? Like I say, the dominant voices out there, they still play the us versus them, the left versus right, right? The red versus blue kind of thing. They are completely unwilling, it seems to me, and you know who they are. I don't have to drop names. I don't have to, name and shame them. You know who they are, but it seems the overwhelming majority of them are just, once again, giving people food or fodder so that they can binge on this stuff, right? And get all angry and pissed off and resentful towards their opponents on the other side of the political divide, and get these false promises or premises that, oh yeah, you just got to get us in power, or the conservatives or the Republicans or whoever into power, and somehow they're going to fix it. Well, I've watched that dog and pony show basically for the entirety of my life, or at least the part of my life that I've actually been paying attention to politics. And all I've seen is it's like back and forth, back and forth. One side starts going a little bit tyrannical. The other side says, oh, how dare they? Oh, vote for us and we'll fix things. And then you vote for them and they're like, well, I guess maybe we're not going to, or they just don't even admit that they're not going to. They just don't do anything in reality, or just tinker around the edges. Then they start, give them enough time to start going a little draconian, start getting authoritarian on you. And then you're like, oh, well, I better vote for the other side to hold these fuckers to account. And then once again, same idea, same thing, rinse and repeat, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Meanwhile, your Stefan Molyneux of the world, or your Larkin Roses, or hey, I'll even name drop myself. Hey, the Canadian Libertarian, or many of us. Let's all even mention like people like Tim Moen and others, right? And yeah, that's just a few of the names. But those of us who actually are willing to properly educate and inform and enlighten our fellow citizens, we are once again constantly shoved to the back of the bus, placed in obscurity at the kids' table, where we can just sit and we're completely allowed to sit and talk amongst each other and ourselves, right? And reinforce each other's grievances against the establishment, the status quo, and help, expand our own knowledge. But the greater of society, the silent majority, they're not getting access to any of this stuff. Because once again, we're only allowed to play in our own little playground and function in our own little echo chambers. I firmly and truly believe that is why people like myself, why our content is so heavily suppressed, is, political hacks and those who want to dominate and control you, those who want to use the state as their means to an end, the status among us, they don't want people like us to give the proper information and knowledge that will break millions of other Canadians' minds free from that cult of statism. So to the point where they actually start to think critically, to the point where they actually realize that, wait a minute. Yeah, I don't want to have to pick rulers anymore. Matter of fact, I don't require rulers at all. I demand that my inherent and inalienable fundamental rights and liberties are respected and upheld. Once again, they don't want to hear stuff like that, because that is the most important information that truly will upset the apple cart in terms of the current system and the current ruling class and establishment. It's us. We are the ones that have the information, the only information that can generally break people's minds free of that cult of statism, of that religion that's been so entrenched and embedded in their minds since they were small children. We're the only ones, which is why, without a shadow of doubt, as far as I'm concerned, why we are so heavily suppressed and our content, basically, like I say, just placed into obscurity. I firmly believe that, and I will continue to believe that until proven otherwise. Anyways, I'm just going to check on a few more comments there, but thanks for joining the stream once again, GTO Mama. Really appreciate that. The Saxon of Riverstone. Hey, what's going on? The Saxon of Riverstone. I'm not familiar with that username. So if you are a new user, I really appreciate you joining this live stream, and hopefully you'll see that this is a benefit to you in some way, and maybe join me in some future live streams. Anyways, thanks again for joining this one. I hope you're enjoying your day. The Canadian government employs 2022 335,957 out third. Wait a minute. Oh, maybe it was supposed to be 22, right? Without the 20. So that would what is now in 24. Anyways, yeah, so I actually shared this, and actually it comes right from Statistics Canada. So if you wanted to check on my past live streams, actually I do have the actual numbers, and I believe your numbers may be a little bit skewed there. And actually, yeah, I'm not sure where your numbers come from, because actually at 38 million, we're actually now, although, yeah, if that was from 2022, I'm not sure. But anyways, our population now in 2024 is actually up to, what is it, 41 million, I do believe. But anyways, thanks for sharing some of your own numbers. Once again, I think they're a little bit either outdated or maybe some of the numbers that you put in there are kind of misplaced. But anyways, thanks once again for joining the live stream. But yeah, just check back on one of my most recent live streams. Actually, let me just check before I continue on here. Let me make sure all my live stream platforms are working right now, and then I'll let you know what the name of that past video was that I uploaded with all those numbers and statistics. Let me just reload this, make sure it's happening over on the YouTube. Yeah, okay, so yes, everything's going good over on YouTube. So actually, let me just close down that so I'm not using up too much of my bandwidth. And then once again, once I check on, I'm just checking on Rumble, make sure it's working right now. And I'll check X. And then once again, I'll let you know what the actual video is or the live stream is that you can click on. Once again, you can find it on Rumble or YouTube, and you can even find it on X, but you'd have to scroll through X in order to find them. So I would definitely recommend you check it out on my Rumble page, my Canadian Libertarian Rumble page, or my Canadian Libertarian YouTube channel, or Rumble channel, or YouTube channel. Okay, so yeah, it looks like everything's going good on Rumble. So let me just click on my Rumble channel, and I will find what that is for you. So, Big State, Little People, it's what it's called, and it was live streamed. What do we got here? It's probably been a few weeks ago now, anyways. But yeah, if you go on to my Canadian Libertarian Rumble channel, once again, you just go, it'll be, today's, so it'll be 3 back, including today's live stream. And like I say, it's called Big State, Little People, the Liberty Angle. So if you check that out, you'll get some really eye-opening numbers in terms of the growth of the state in this country. And yeah, it's profound. It is profound. Anyways, I'm just going to check once again over on X and make sure this live stream's good, and just let people know once again, because I know a lot of people don't know how to find my live streams over on X. I'll just let them know that it's actually happening right now. I'm live. There we go. So I'm posting that over on X for the fine folks over there. Once again, X, one of the best platforms. I mean, look at Elon out there, right? He is amazing in terms of standing up in defense of our freedom of speech in particular. And the fact that he's definitely being defiant against, was it Lula or whatever the hell, or that judge down in Brazil, right? Good for you, Elon. Good for you. And keep doing what you do, man. I know things have got to be difficult. I know you've got a lot on your plate with all of your, huge companies that you're trying to run. And, you got like SpaceX, you got all these Starlink satellites up there. Now you're going to start making it so we'll have direct. I'm not sure if you folks are familiar with this. I have the Starlink setup, and I got to tell you, I don't know how long it's going to be, but by the end of this year, it should be able to do it in text form. And then I think by next year, we'll be able to do it not just text form, but actual phone calls, be able to turn your Android devices. Not sure if it's going to happen on the Apple devices, but I know for sure, in particular, your Android devices will be able to now be basically be able to simulate as if they were a satellite phone. So you'll be able to do direct satellite to phone communication without any intermediary, right? And which means you'll have service no matter where the heck you are. And I believe what they're saying too is they're even going to roll it out, even if you're not subscribed to Starlink or have a Starlink setup. You'll even be able to use it if you have an Android phone. You'll even be able to use that particular feature to make emergency calls. So no matter where you're at, even if you're in a place where you don't normally have cell phone coverage, well, you'll have that kind of coverage by the fact that the satellites that Elon SpaceX and Starlink's been sending up recently, this I think it's like the version 2.0 or the latest version, are using this kind of technology where, once again, you can use direct satellite to telephone communication, which is going to be a massive game changer. And once again, I'm so appreciative of that. Like I say, what Elon Musk, one man, well, he's one man that runs and owns these companies. He's the CEOs, but there's a lot of people that work underneath him. And I want to shout out to each and every one of those people, who are part of the team, or anyone that's the investors, anyone that has anything, who's playing any role whatsoever and helping make these things possible and being a bulwark or a challenge to the establishment who just constantly wants to suppress and silence our voices. I am so grateful for each and every one of them. And each and every one of them, I plead with you to continue on your fight, and just know that there are literally millions and probably billions of people around the world who are going to benefit tremendously for everything you folks do. And once again, I support you with everything that I can. There's a reason why I even spend a little money. I put a little skin in the game, right, to defend them. And that's not just by buying the Starlink setup, because it's a great benefit to me, but in terms of paying for not just premium on X, but premium plus. Anything I can do to help support Elon in his endeavors, I'm going to continue to do, and I definitely recommend many other folks do as well. So, anyways, yeah, thanks for your comment. Let me just check. Yeah, Crooks. Hey, what's going on, Kevin Hazelwood? Thank you for joining the stream. That's a pretty cool pic of a dog. That dog, the face almost looks a little bit like my youngest son Aaron's dog there. Major. His dog's name is Major, and his face kind of looks a little bit like that. He's a cutie for sure. But yeah, nice picture you got there. Nice dog there, Kevin Hazelwood. And yes, you're absolutely right. They're a bunch of crooks, no doubt about it. And thank you too for joining the stream. Really appreciate that. Yeah, oversight. Yeah. Laugh my ass off. Yeah, exactly. I'm with you there. Yeah, Bill C-11 and Bill C-63 or whatever. Yep, it's communist Canada now. Yeah, well, that's the thing. They're taking us to the place where we're going to live under a very draconian authoritarian regime. And so many of our fellow peers and citizens are sleepwalking into this stuff without even realizing just how crazy things have become, because they're so inadequately and woefully inadequately informed. And that's where we have to step up the plate and help getting them on board to understand some of these things. So at the very least, at the bare minimum, they can't claim ignorance anymore, right? I remember getting documents back from police. The public body won't confirm or deny the existence of documents. Yeah. Well, like I say, it's just amazing how the system is so set up to make corruption so heavily entrenched to the point where almost everyone resorts to it, because it's just so enticing for these people, right? Let's see here. Power in numbers till the AI hits the robots, then we're fucked. Well, once again, not necessarily because if you think about it, the kind of people that work for the state function within the realm of the state, right? Sure, they have access to lots of resources, and I'm no doubt they have some decent coders and some people that kind of at least somewhat know what they're doing. I would suggest, I would even expect that there's got to be a few of them in there. But once again, pit them up against the people in the private sector. Pit them up against the kind of people who are, willing to go up against the behemoth, the Goliath, aka, the state, right? The lone one-off individuals, right? The courageous libertarians and anarchists and voluntarists, right? Those people who have learned, to function outside of the realm of the state, or to function even when they're within it in a manner that's conducive to benefiting them and their freedoms as best as they can, right? These are the kind of people that have not just the right incentive, but the amazing amount of brain power and capacity up there in their cranium to not just challenge, but to basically dominate the status. The status, once again, they're not properly incentivized. They're, way beneath in terms of their intelligence, their competence, and their ambition in comparison and contrast to those who actually want to stand in defense of their liberties. The ones that want to impose their will on you are going to fail miserably if you look at who the kind of people are standing in defense of their liberties. Once again, if I was a betting man, I would definitely bet on that small minority of people who are standing in full defense of their liberties and willing to do whatever needs to be done to do that, right? I believe that good will ultimately win out in the end, but there are definitely going to be, some battle scars, and there's going to be some individual battles that are going to be lost. But I believe we will eventually win the war of ideas, and actual, in case that ever does come in the physical realm, I believe they would also be the ones that would win the war as well, right? So you just got to always keep that in mind. that the people who are the statists, not the best and the brightest among us, those who actually are opposing the Goliath, the behemoth of the state, yeah, there's some fucking stone cold geniuses and amazing innovators, creators, and entrepreneurs out there that are coming out with a multitude of ways to try to break the chains that currently shackle them, right? You can just see that taking place. And once again, I would just recommend and suggest that you don't let yourself get too black-pilled there, Kevin. Keep your mind in a little bit of a more positive space and just recognize and realize that, yeah, we got this. It's going to take some time. It's not going to be easy, but we got this. But once again, we need more recruits, right? Matter of fact, I believe things get much, much better, much quicker, although I expect things are going to get worse in the interim. But I think it can only help things to happen in a faster pace if we grow our ranks, right? And that's something that we really need to be focusing on in particular these days. Anyways, let me just move on here. I'll get to some more of your chats there in a bit, folks, but I just want to move on to the next article that I wanted to cover because, yeah, this is just insane. I don't know how they even get away with doing this stuff, but apparently in this country, once again, justice is just up in the air. It's just ruled by edict these days. But yeah, let me bring this particular article on and show you what exactly I'm trying to allude to here. So this is from the Ottawa Citizen, published on June 29th, 2024 by Blair Crawford. New trial ordered for convoy protester acquitted of mischief, obstructing police. A judge has rejected the acquittal of a man charged with mischief and obstructing police during the police action in February 2022 to end the Freedom Convoy blockade of downtown Ottawa. Instead, Evan Blackman is to face trial for a second time on his actions on February 18, 2022, the day hundreds of police officers from Ontario and Quebec began clearing protesters who had occupied the city court for 3 weeks. In his decision, Ontario Superior Court Justice Kevin Phillips ruled the judge at Blackman's brief October 2023 trial ignored essential elements of the prosecutor's case while placing emphasis on non-essential details. While lauding the trial judge as admirably efficient, the judge delivered his verdict immediately after a short recess following submissions. Phillips ruled the acquittal cannot stand. Evidence at the original trial consisted of a 14-minute overhead video from a police drone and the testimony from the arresting officer. On the frigid Friday morning, police in crowd control gear, backed by officers on horses, stood in line across Colonel By-Drive Square, off again a crowd of protesters. Philip, written ruling said that this occurred on February 18th, 2021, but the date was actually February 18th, 2022. So what the hell, right? So you're just going to use some technicality, some mistake to basically deny, anyways, let me continue on. For a long while, the two sides stand facing each other, Phillips wrote. The police maintain a rigid line, basically across Colonel by parallel to Rideau Street. The protesters hold the same line, interacting disagreeably with the police. And by the gestures of many, one can tell that emotions are escalating. Several at the front have their arms interlocked. Some are hugging in clusters of twos and threes as if something meaningful is about to happen. So first of all, if you've seen the video, and I've shared it multitude of times in the past as well, and maybe I'll share it once again after this live stream. But yeah, it's just a bunch of unarmed protesters against armed, right, and heavily uniformed and wearing protective gear and all that stuff. Mindless order followers who they too, or who didn't even have on badges or nameplates or numbers, badge numbers, or even identifying badges such as a name. Nothing. No way to identify them. Right. And that alone, if you show up, to a protest, to a peaceful protest, armed and all dressed from head to toe in basically riot gear with no name and no badge to identify you. Yeah. that should send chills down anyone's spine, right? To know that that is what the ruling establishment considers to be, even somewhat or even remotely appropriate to do against unarmed peaceful protesters, right? That's disgusting. It's vile and very disturbing. When police began advancing, Blackman and several other demonstrators stepped out in front of them and knelt on the ground. Blackman began singing "O Canada" as the police approached. The judge at the original trial ruled that Blackman may not have known that the protesters had been ordered to leave and therefore might not have known he was obstructing their duty. So remember what this person did. What is the crime that this person is accused of? Accused of? But kneeling as these mindless order followers are encroaching on him for doing nothing more than peacefully protesting, right? And following out the arbitrary authoritarian edicts of their political masters. All this guy did was take a knee and start singing "Oh Canada." Oh, what a crime. Oh, what a crime, right? Unfucking believable. Phillips rejected that. What communications the police managed to get through to Mr. Blackman was not the point. His kneeling on its own could constitute as an act to obstruct the police. The trial judge had to consider whether Mr. Blackman could have been at least willfully blind about what the police were doing, and that his kneeling could have been intended by him to make the police job harder, Phillips wrote. So once again, this is, of course, any fucking fool can come up with any scenario in their mind. This is a judge using ridiculous abstractions and justifications that he's just making up in his mind to basically go after a man that was already run through a lot of hell, had to go through a lot of hell, charged, and finally I guess the original one was finally deemed by at least one judge to be completely inappropriate. But now to only find out, however long later, that no, he's going to have to go through this all over again, right? And once again, what was his crime? For kneeling, and singing "Oh Canada." Like I say, how fucking insane is that? How could anyone alive today, even reading this stuff, no matter what your political allegiance or alliance is, how could anyone defend this shit? How could anyone suggest that what this person did was criminal in any way, shape, or form? Because if it's deemed criminal by any stretch of the imagination, then that just goes to show you that anything can be deemed a crime. Anything. Trust me when I tell you, I already knew that long ago. But once again, there are a whole lot of Canadians, millions and millions of our fellow citizens that really need to learn this stuff as well. By kneeling, as here, a person takes his legs out of commission, rendering himself non-ambulatory. Mr. Blackman arguably wished to convert his body into an obstacle for the police to have to work around, to perhaps have to move with lifting force rather than be ushered along with words. Like, unfucking believable. Listen to the way this fucking judge talks. Tell me that's not an authoritarian piece of shit, right? Phillips rejected the mischief acquittal because the trial judge didn't explain his reasoning. While brevity is to be applauded in a busy and backlogged court system, at the same time, however, reasons must disclose, even in a basic way, the thought process through which the result was arrived at, Phillips wrote. No trial judge is obliged to articulate thoughts about every issue that came up or could be imagined. In this case, however, the issue of party liability was central to the prosecution's argument and deserves at least some kind of mention. Blackman was represented at the hearing by lawyer Chris Fleury. In an article published in advance of the hearing by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, Fleury said that if the acquittal was overturned he intended to apply for a stay of proceedings. Blackman pleaded not guilty at the original trial. So anyways, I just got to say, I wish this Blackman all the best in the world, and hopefully he will have justice served at some point in time after going through all this hell. But once again, the process alone has already been the punishment, just as it is for Barber and Leach, right? Who are still going through a trial all these years later. And it's not just them. What is it, Pat King as well, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that these authoritarian tyrants are trying to use, right, as to send a message to the rest of us, right? Prop them up and say, don't do what these folks did, because this will be what awaits you if you do, right? They want to use them as examples, right? And they're going to, and they are, and they're going to continue to railroad over them as a means in order to do that. That is truly pathetic, folks. But that is the reality of the world, of the country that we live in. I know it's sad, but hey, it is what it is. All right, let me just bring up another one here. We got this, like I say, this is just insane, folks, but I'm going to bring up another one just to show you how crazy the infringements are on our freedoms, our inherent and inalienable fundamental freedoms, right? Not just your freedom to protest and freedom of movement, but freedom of speech itself. And here, once again, is another example. This one was reported by, let me bring this back up here. So it was the Canadian Press. This was back in August 17th, 2024. Headline: Chilliwack woman arrested after racially offensive social media content, RCMP. So, yeah, arrested, folks. Now, this ain't a very long article, and hopefully I'll see more information pertaining to this, and I'll cover even more of it in a subsequent live stream or video. So let me just read this little bit that is contained within this article. A Chilliwack woman has been arrested over what police are describing as racially offensive content she shared via social media. Police say the woman was arrested on August 7th, but has since been released to appear in court at a later date while prosecutors consider several possible recommended charges. Police declined to share the suspect's name or the account she allegedly used. RCMP spokesman Corporal Carmen Keener says the account on X, formerly known as Twitter, was brought to the attention of police by concerned citizens and members of the media, right? So was it actual concerned citizens? Because a member of the media would also be a concerned citizen, right? But who would know? Either way, it's a bunch of rats, whether they're just regular citizens or those who represent the establishment media. Think about what they've done just by a woman saying some words, right? Just words, folks, just words. But anyways, let me read this last little bit here. She says the woman was allegedly targeting members of the South Asian community, adding investigators learned of several examples, but believe one person is responsible for all the content. Keener says police hope the woman will make her first court appearance in the next few weeks, and if charges are approved, more details will be made public. She says the level of interest in the case, coupled with the fact that the woman has been particularly public with her views, led police to decide to release information about their investigation. So anyways, folks, like I said, I'll be trying to follow along any further or subsequent information pertaining to this. But once again, even freedom of speech, even just saying some words on social media can now get you arrested in Canada. That's how crazy things have become. And I don't even believe Bill 663, right, the online harms bill, is even fully implemented as of yet and been passed. So they're doing that, even the absence of that. Think of how much worse they can get subsequent to the passing of Bill C-63. Yes, disturbing, very disturbing. Anyway, I'm going to read a few more of your comments here before I move on. Check out what the Edmonton police decide to do to the public forum. They basically banned the public from attending the police commission. It's disgusting. Guess it was getting too loud in there. Oh, in their echo chamber. Oops. Guess where'd that go? I lost that. There we go. In the echo chamber. Yeah, no doubt. And that is very disturbing as well. Thanks for sharing that, Kevin. And yeah, that's some messed up shit for sure. A public forum without the public. How diverse exactly? Well said, GTO Mama. Guardians of public trust. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's their mottos. Sweeping shit under the rug. Yeah. Hey, Jim McCall. Hello, everybody. Hey, Jim, thanks for joining the live stream as well. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate you joining the live stream today. And once again, let me just continue on here a little bit. It's sad we lost our country. It's sad that we've lost a lot of our inherently inalienable fundamental rights and freedoms under the Trudeau regime. That's the reality. But once again, we can change that. We can change that. Maybe not you or I by ourselves, but we can definitely help inspire countless others to join our fight. And that is what we really need to be doing at the end of the day. And I tell you, folks, for me, it starts at home, it starts in my family, and it starts in my immediate community. And then I just work outward from there. Of course, well, actually, I kind of do it in conjunction at the same time, right? Simultaneously. I'm constantly, like I say, no matter, even in my workplace, if I get the opportunity to talk about any of this stuff to anybody, right? And they're receptive, well, I'm right there. And I've got, tons of things to bring to light and to properly help educate, inform, and enlighten people as to what the hell has been taking place, while they've been busy doing other things. But at the same time, I'm always out there on the internet, right? Even the days when I'm not doing my live streams or things like that, I'm still always active in some way, in some capacity, whether it's just sharing other people's content, right? Which is what I do a lot of times, even during the day now, right? Even sometimes, you know, when when I can't be, at my home and have access to the ability to go through all the new and latest information, I'll just scroll even on my phone, right? Get some information and share that, right? Like I say, everything I can do constantly, because in the age of information, ignorance truly is a choice. And I'm going to be one of those people that are going to help put that information out there. And I'm going to be dropping that information all over the place, right? So much, in fact, that people will have no choice but to stumble over, and maybe a few of them will look down and maybe take interest or take notice, right? That's what I do. And once again, I definitely recommend you folks do the same. Help educate and inform as many people as humanly possible, right? You won't get them all, that's for sure. But even if it's 1 in 10, right? Every little bit helps. And you might ask, well, what can one person do? Well, one person at a time. But I mean, look at now, you have to be one person with a tremendous amount of resources. But Elon Musk is one of those people that has done a lot, and he's just one man. Ron Paul, right? He didn't actually affect change by his presidential run. He didn't change. He didn't end the Fed, right? The state didn't cease to exist, but boy, did he inspire, a lot of Americans and even people like myself as a Canadian, right? There are millions and millions of us, right? So, and our ranks are growing every day. Make no mistake about that. And our voices, while yes, placed at the proverbial back of the bus for the most part, every once in a while, a little bit, gets through, right? And once that kind of information gets through, right? Well, then once it gets to the light of day, people will try to manipulate it, distort it, right? Use all kinds of political rhetoric to deny it or to rephrase it or to frame it. But once again, the intelligent won't be manipulated. They'll see right through that shit. And these are really the people that we want to be privy to this kind of information. We want the intelligent types, the fools that'll just pass over it or trip over it and not even look down, right? I mean, really, what help are they going to be, right? No, we want the intelligent people, the ambitious people. We want the people with resources and with the fortitude, the resolve, and courage to use that information for the good or to benefit themselves and those of us in society who care tremendously about our freedoms. And by natural extension, even those who are apathetic will benefit from that as well. So this is how it has to be done. And once again, because we're talking about the marketplace of ideas, I'm just like in the real place of the market where we exchange goods, same in the realm of ideas. I'm all about the free market. I'm all about a multitude of people coming up with a multitude of ways and using variants and multitudes of methods to get our information out there and to help use that information to start shifting and turn this big state of ship around, right? So yeah, thanks. I hope I'm right too. I hope I'm right too. But one thing I've always known is whether I'm right or wrong, I, just like you, I'm the only one that has to live in my head, just like you have to live in your head. So even if I am proven wrong, although I don't believe so, I have enough of a history and an understanding and a grasp on things that I've been pretty right. Once again, I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a fallible human being like anyone else, but I've been pretty goddamn correct in most of my assumptions and assertions, because I don't make assumptions or assertions unless I know that it's grounded in some good solid information and some good solid reasoning and logic as well. So no guarantees, but once again, even if I was somehow, even on in the worst case scenario, I'm proven wrong, at the very least, I've lived in the interim, I've lived that entire time with a good, positive, healthy mindset so that I'm going to be in much better shape no matter how bad things get in the future. Right. I'm protecting my brain just like I build my body. I make sure even at the ripe old age of 53, I've been working out there for quite a while with my son. Actually, since last year, we started doing it. It actually was in the winter, but I want to keep my physical presence and my physical body in great health, great shape, and with the skills and ability to defend myself if needed and necessary. Right. But it's the same thing with my mind. I have to keep it sharpened. I have to keep it well um, responsive, and so that I can articulate in terms of what I say, through the language, through words, right? So I can translate what's in my mind into words and in a manner that's conducive with helping educate, inform, and enlighten other people. I'm constantly expanding. I'm working out my brain and I'm working out my body and I'm making sure I'm well rounded, right? Because that is definitely the thing that our opponents are very fearful of. They are the antithesis of having a very sharp mind and strong bodies, right? That is why they're fear. That's why we're the most fearful people on the planet, right? The big, strong right wingers, yeah, like they might fear them in the physical space, but a lot of them are a bunch of knuckle draggers or those who are willing to play the left versus right thing, right? So they're what you call useless fools for the establishment in terms of maintaining the system by playing the left versus right, us versus them in terms of red versus blue thing. Whereas people like us, like I say, the establishment, and even many of those who are anti-establishment in the alternative space, they don't even know how to deal with us. And why that is they recognize and they secretly acknowledge our supremacy in a multitude of ways. So that's the trick with them, right? They're willing to battle each other or sit in their echo chambers and pop up their crowd, their followers totally, and they'll get them. I see it. I see it taking place. But what they won't do, what they refuse to do, is to engage with people like you or I, because they know at that point in time, the gig is basically up. Because once their followers see that, wait a minute. Yeah, I get it. You guys have been throwing me the red meat and getting me chomping at the bits and pissed off at my opponents. But actually, you haven't really been doing anything more than that. Right? And you've been doing it for so long that things just continue to get worse. And I'm just sitting here listening to you talk more and more smack about your opponents. But meanwhile, both sides, both of you idiots, both sides of political divides still have it within you and a yearning to completely dominate me in the social and economic realm. Whereas people like Bennett or people who aren't part of the establishment or even part of this new up and coming opposing team, once again, we're unbridled, we're unshackled entirely and willing to tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. That is the power that we possess. And once again, I'm willing to wield it and yield it, and I'm going to pass that kind of information off to as many people as humanly possible and try to entice them to join us in our fight. Anyways, I'm just going to read a few more. But yeah, thanks for all your great comments, folks. Good to hear it, GTO Mama. I remain cautiously optimistic. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. And I'm really hoping that everything's doing well in your personal life. By the way, I forgot to actually mention, I should have mentioned this early on, maybe put things into a little bit of a lighter note there these days, is my son, Aaron, with his girlfriend, Rebecca. Well, I should say his fiance. They actually went here, what was it, last week? and actually did the whole gender reveal thing. And it turns out that, well, I mean, you folks that watch my content regularly know that I'm going to be a grandfather soon. It'll be in January. But now I also know I'm going to be a grandfather to a granddaughter. So that's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. We've all been, especially my wife in particular, in my family, it's a lot of boys, right? Well, I mean, me and my brother, and then of course I had two sons, and my wife, she has a one brother, and so there's a lot of boys. There's no shortage of male in our immediate families, but there was a bit of a shortage in on the female side of things, and it's really really awesome to see that our first grandchild is going to be a daughter, a granddaughter, and for my son to have a daughter. He's really happy about that. And of course, he's going to have a couple more after that. He's definitely, of course, like any guy, he wants to have a son as well, but he's really, really happy about having this daughter. And of course, my wife is just ecstatic. And well, actually, Rebecca, the mother, of course, she's really, really happy about that too. Actually, everyone, her family as well. We're all really happy about this stuff and looking forward to when that birth finally takes place in January, and starting to get to know this amazing little baby there that's going to be brought up in a very loving environment and be constantly surrounded by people who will actually properly educate, inform, and enlighten this person in a manner that she, as well as anyone that'll be part of my family, will be able to spot a status a mile away, and will never be drawn into that particular cult or religion. And that I'm so happy for, so happy for. Um, I believe a lot of the riot cops were UN soldiers. Well, you never know. Although I do know that apparently a substantial portion of them were recruits from Quebec, the Quebec police, I believe, or something like that. But how would you know, right? Like we can all speculate. I'm not suggesting you're wrong, because it's very possible. Because yeah, they were nameless and badgeless. So how the hell would anyone know? And like I say, covered in, not just the riot gear, but helmets and glasses and all that stuff. So it really is impossible for us to know, and I don't know if we ever will know. But that's a good point there, and you may very well be correct in your assumption, Jim. I'm not sure. Whatever happened to the woman in the wheelchair that got trampled? Did she get paid off? Yeah, actually, I'm not sure on that myself, Jim. And actually that's kind of an indictment on us, right? And how crazy, even as much as we try to pay attention to stuff, is I'll even admit myself, I haven't even really looked recently to follow up on that poor lady, right? And the reason why that is, and I'm sure you're well aware, is we're so inundated daily with so much propaganda and information and articles and stories that it's almost impossible to keep track. Like you almost have no choice but to move on, right? And forget about some of the stuff that happened in the past. Once again, I'm even guilty of that. So I can't really get too mad about other people that maybe, aren't as informed. Maybe they're doing it to protect their own minds from the harshness that is being stuck in this quandary, right? Of having to deal with so much stuff on a daily basis. Once again, it does require you to have a lot of strength, a lot of resolve, and a strong mind and strong will to be able to do this stuff on a regular basis. And once again, I'll even tell you myself, well, as you folks know, I've had to take a couple breaks over the, what has it been, 12 years or so? Not too many, mind you, but I've had to take a couple breaks because I find myself, or I have found myself, even getting overwhelmed. And yeah, at the end of the day, once again, I'm not that altruistic. I got to take care of myself first and foremost if I'm going to be good to anybody, right? I would love to constantly, just brush off my cares and concerns or my own internal strife or consequences of dealing with all this stuff. But no, I can't. I have to, once again, I have to, well, I mean, that's called leading by example, right? Is I have to do the right thing for myself. And I expect that you should, or I suggest you do the same thing. Before you're going to be in any way remotely helpful for other people, you have to place yourself, your mind, your body, your psychology, your state of health. You have to prioritize that and make yourself in the best position possible where you can help others, right? And not just in terms of what you can do for them, but how you can lead by that example and show them the way. That is probably one of the most helpful things you can do, is lead by example and show other people how it actually works and how it actually benefits you. Because once again, people in my own life have seen how much of a benefit the things I've been doing in recent years to protect my not just mental health but physical health as well. They see that and they see how well it's worked for me, and it has enticed them to replicate that in their own lives. And I'm proud to say that I've done that, and I'm going to win, and I'm willing to continue to do that going forward, not just for me, but for others as well, right? And especially in particular, my loved ones, those I tremendously care about. Just going to look through a few more comments here. Uh, you're an inspiring mofo. You're right. Don't let them pull you down. Oh, that's awesome, Kevin. I really appreciate that, man. I really, really do, because like, that's the thing. People don't realize how important your self-esteem is. And once again, I don't know how you're dealing with your own, mind space, right? That gray area in between your ears. But yeah, that's really important, right? Keep some a healthy attitude, have some self-esteem. Don't be egotistical, because that can be self-defeating as well. But having some self-esteem and other people in your life that show appreciation. Once again, even if they're not in your personal physical space, but even people like yourself, that what you said there really helps me. When you say that I am inspiring, that tells me that what I'm doing is a good thing and it's benefiting others, and that just encourages and entices me to continue doing so. So thank you, Kevin, and I really, really appreciate you saying that. And I'll continue to do whatever I can, once again, to help, like I say, help myself and help others as much as I possibly can. By the way, anyone that's watching this live stream, if you ever want to engage in some long form discussion as it pertains to anything relating to liberty, just let me know. Reach out to me on any of my social media pages, or even on through some of my emails. And my emails are all linked in my social media pages. And yeah, I'll gladly invite you on, and we'll have a big old chat or discussion pertaining to whatever suits your fancy, right? And like I say, I really thoroughly enjoy having these engaging discussions, and I'm definitely going to get more into or back into those discussions with a lot of people. But once again, in this particular time in my work life, it's just so hard to do these kinds of things. And then I only have the weekends, and I have my family that I got to prioritize, right? Because of there's a lot of things that are taking place in my own personal family life these days. But once again, once things start winding down at work and I get more time, more disposable time, I definitely am looking forward to getting back into doing a lot of interviews, and I'm going to step up the game this year. I feel like this year when I start to do it, I'm just going to dive head first, and I'm probably even going to start to reach out to some people with some larger audiences, and some of the people that just to see, are they willing to engage and have conversations with a person like myself, right? Right? Because there are some prominent voices. And as you folks know, I typically don't try to reach out to prominent voices with large following, because I kind of feel like they might think I'm trying to take advantage of gaining a following myself, right? By using their audience, right? But or trying to purge their audience and take some of them. But that's never my intention. My intention is just for people to be able to have access to the kind of information and ideas that I provide. Right. And I've done that with other people as well. But I am definitely interested in having some of these long form discussions with some of those more popular characters and figures out there, right? Who are actually in some way, some capacity challenging the status quo and the establishment. I'm really looking forward to do that. And of course, even for people that are like themselves, maybe a little bit more obscure and maybe not quite as popular. I love having discussions with people of all backgrounds, and no matter if they're have large followings or small audiences. To me, that's kind of moot. I don't really care about that too much. I just like to have very engaging discussions about big ideas. That I'm very interested in, and I'm going to, like I say, be looking forward to doing lots of that here in just probably a couple short months from now. I'm glad I turned in today. I'm glad I tuned in today. Good to know some people will stand up and fight. Right on, Kevin. I'm glad you tuned in today as well. And once again, hopefully you'll tune in for other videos in the future. Really appreciate that, or live streams, I should say. Helmets, glass, and mask. Who are you? Pun intended. Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. If I must go down, I'll be fighting. Great to hear, GTO Mama. Great to hear, because you're another one of those people that I can tell you got a lot of fight in you. And it's so nice to know that you're on the side of the good. Really nice to know that you're on the side of good. Anyways, I'm just going to get into some more of these. Let's see here. Okay, we already covered the BC woman. And then I'll just mention this. I won't even bring the article on, but Zuckerberg, he says the White House pressured Facebook over some COVID-19 content during the pandemic. Actually, it was quite interesting what Zuckerberg had to say. And even that letter that he wrote, not sure if you folks are familiar with that or not, but you can find that. I actually retweeted that on my X page. So if you wanted to scroll through my past, go to my profile and scroll through some of my past posts, my most recent past posts, you'll see that letter. But it's quite amazing. It almost seems in some way, in some capacity, in some regard, that, and I mean, he could be just hedging his bet, right? There's always that, of course, right? But it kind of seems in some way that Zuckerberg is maybe a little bit fed up with the establishment and these wokesters himself. And he's like, okay, you fuckers fooled me a couple times already, but you're not going to fool me again. I'm hoping that case, right? Once again, I don't know. I could be proven wrong, right? I'm not an oracle and I don't have a crystal ball or anything, right? Don't have a magic 8 ball, but it does seem that things are changing. And especially when someone like Mark Zuckerberg is starting to see things a little bit more brighter and seeing, kind of peeked underneath the hood and see what the hell is taking place these days. That's kind of encouraging as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I will read a little bit on that just to let you folks know. Maybe some of you folks aren't familiar with it. So I actually will bring it on, share just a little bit here. So this was another Associated Press, but it's being republished, this one by CTV News. Update August 28th, 2024. Washington, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg says senior Biden administration officials pressured Facebook to censor some COVID-19 content during the pandemic and vowed that the social media giant would push back if it faced such demands again. So once again, that's a great thing. That is an excellent thing because you got to remember how popular these social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook are. And the fact that the CEO is the one that runs these companies is now kind of wised up and aware of what took place and unwilling to allow it to happen again. And then we have, X under the management of Mark or Elon Musk. Like these are great because once again, between X and the Meta platforms, that represents, ultimately billions of people and our access to get our information out there and shared around. So this is a positive sign and positive news as far as I'm concerned. In a letter to Representative Jim Jordan, the Republican chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Zuckerberg alleges that the officials, including those from the White House, repeatedly pressured Facebook for months to take down certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire. The officials expressed a lot of frustration when the company didn't agree, he said in the letter. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it, Zuckerberg wrote in a letter dated August 26th and posted on the committee's Facebook page and to its account on X. The letter is the latest repudiation by Zuckerberg of efforts to target misinformation around the coronavirus pandemic during and after the 2020 presidential election, particularly as allegations have emerged that some posts were deleted or restricted wrongly. And you folks know, like I covered all this stuff and I knew while it was taking place, or I highly suspected that, obviously my content, we kind of always kind of known or really heavily suspected this was taking place, but it's just so refreshing and so good for my mental health to know that, yes, this has all been confirmed by Zuckerberg himself. All of our suspicions have been confirmed, folks. That like I say, that's amazing because we were right about this. We were right about so many things in the past. And eventually, right, the fence sitters, those on the sidelines, the silent majority, eventually, once they come to learn, and hopefully they will come to learn about people like us, and once they do come to learn that we have almost, I won't say perfect, but we have an amazing track record of being able to decipher and discern the rhetoric, the propaganda, and to properly inform, educate, and enlighten others as to what's taking place out there. Because once again, there's a lot of nefarious kind of shit taking place that seems subtle to some, or at least to those who aren't paying particularly, steadfast attention to what's taking place. A lot of these people can brush this off as conspiracy theory or it's just someone's opinion or speculation. But once again, we have so many examples now where all this stuff has been proven. Our assumptions were proven to be correct. And especially in particular as pertaining to the COVID narrative, the propaganda, and all the support or supposed support for the draconian mandates and lockdowns, right? And business closures and arrests. They tried to pretend, and they used the established media to suggest that the majority, right, the mob of whether you're talking about Canadians, Americans, or whoever, were on board with all this nonsense. But we're seeing more and more that no, that was the case. A lot of people just went along to go along. Not that they supported it. And I think a lot of them have come to the point now, especially because I see people out there in my own personal life, they're like, yeah, they fooled me once, but they won't fool me again. And that is something I've seen in spades, especially in particular in recent years, especially after all the truth came out in terms of the whole COVID-19 thing, and especially as it pertains to the vaccines, right? All of that stuff has been completely upended now, and people are, at least more people are on heightened state of alert and more willing to give people like myself the chance, or at least someone who's challenged the establishment a chance. Maybe not myself as of yet, but hopefully they'll find me, that proverbial needle in the haystack, and be even more properly informed than some of the information they're getting currently. Yeah, so I think that's good enough anyways, right? But yeah, so that's pretty amazing. I find that it's important. Actually, I do want to cover this particular subject matter too, because you folks know I love every time I read an example of this. This was great, especially because that was one of Trudeau's signature pieces of legislation, was the fact that he legalized weed, but really all he did was try to make crony corporations the power block that would dominate the cannabis industry in this country. And I'm proud to say that no, Matt in apartment 6B, you folks, some of you folks will get that joke, that gesture. But yeah, the private market, the actual free market, those who have been there, cultivating, growing, selling, distributing cannabis to Canadians, or let's just use Canada for decades, ever since I was a kid anyways, right? Yeah, they're still out there, folks, and they're still dominating in the market, right? It's not all these $billion+ crony corporations that are dominating. No, it's still people like Matt in apartment B, which tells me there's a lot of Canadians who are refusing to prop up the business models of these crony corporations. And I'm really, really happy to see that stuff. That's a great thing. But let me just show you the latest example of that, right? So this is CBC News under the business section. As another cannabis retailer tries to save itself, is the industry going up in smoke? Tokyo Smoke shutters 29 stores, seeks creditor protection in latest cannabis shakeup. This is reported by Jenna Benchitrit, August 30th, 2024. Got a light? Canada's weed industry could probably use it. Tokyo Smoke is the latest Canadian cannabis retailer to close some of its locations and seek creditor protection in an unpredictable industry grappling with too many stores, high overhead costs, and ultra low retail prices. One of the earliest brands to form in Ontario after the federal legalization of pot in 2018, Tokyo Smoke is shutting 29 stores and restructuring its business under the company's Creditors Arrangement Act, it announced Thursday. It will still have 167 locations open across 4 provinces. It's surprising and it's not surprising at the same time. I think probably people are surprised to see such a prominent name file for creditor protection, said Matt Morer, a partner and chair of the cannabis law group at Torkin Mains LLP in Toronto. But at the same time, it's no surprise to people in the industry. And I think people in general that the cannabis industry is going through a little bit of a turmoil. Canada has seen a slew of cannabis retailers and producers file for creditor protection or close stores in the last several years, with many falling behind on their tax obligations as well. See, that's the thing that the black market, the free market, doesn't have to deal with, right? Tax obligations. Moore notes that the range of chains, big brands, mom and pop stores, people who own 1 or 2 stores versus those that own 10 or 15, some of which are franchised, makes the market a mixed bag. In Ontario, Canada's largest regulated weed market, ahead of Alberta and BC, a lot of these companies wanted to expand quickly when retail was allowed to grab a good size of the market share. And that was a very logical strategy, said Maurer. Yeah, here we go. But those stores have had to compete with a still thriving black market. Bloomberg analyst Duncan Fox Bloomberg analyst Duncan Fox recently wrote that the illegal pot industry would remain a significant barrier to producers' ability to raise prices because of intense competition. That was one of the challenges outlined in Tokyo Smoke's filing. It cited a thriving illicit market as having impacted its revenues and that it disproportionately impacts licensed retailers, diverting money from them into an illicit market estimated to be worth between $2 billion and $4 billion. So isn't that fucking awesome? And of course they can't compete. Now, they got all these the retarded amounts of packaging, right? The massive amount of use of different materials and labeling and all this stuff. Whereas Man Department 6B, he just got to buy a bag. He can go to Dollarama and buy a box of baggies in different sizes, right? They cost like what, a couple bucks? So yeah, they're not going to compete. And once again, Matt Department 6B, not too worried about, filing taxes or paying taxes, right? We're selling a little bit of weed or cannabis. So yeah, like this is just, like I say, this is one of those feel good stories that I typically really, really enjoy. And I once again, if you want to see or hear other videos pertaining to this kind of stuff, actually, I even did in the past some of those short videos. You don't even have to look into my live streams to see some of the short, what are the maybe 5, 10, 15-minute videos pertain to a lot of these crony corporations that thought that they were going to take over and assume dominance in the cannabis industry in this country. And they're finding out fast and steady that no, that's not the case. Right. And which is great, which is awesome. So glad to see that. Yeah. That's so awesome. So anyways, let me see what else we got here. This one here, actually, I was going to cover. I will link it in there. So if you want to follow up, but I actually think I'm going to have to read this article a few times. It was a little bit, the way it was written, it was a little bit more confusing. And I want to make sure I'm properly informed about it a little bit more, maybe before I actually cover it. But I will just give you a quick snippet. So it was a Canadian Press article that was reshared on MSM.com, MicrosoftNetwork.com. And it's a story by Jim Bronskill. It says 6 days ago. So that would have been what I'm assuming somewhere around the 25th of August, somewhere in around there. Anyways, Ottawa, let me just read a little snippet here. Ottawa, a law professor is urging the Supreme Court of Canada to weigh the constitutionality of revolutionary and unprecedented legislation that limits members of a prominent spy watchdog from using their parliamentary immunity to speak out. So I believe this has to do with the whole, the Chinese basically interference into our election system in this country. That was a big dominant story over the summer. And I believe this is pertaining to that. So once again, try to put all those pieces of the puzzle together before I actually delve into it. So just to let you know, though, that that's going to be something I'm going to be covering in a future subsequent live stream. But I'll kind of hold off on that today before I delve right into it. Oh, and I did want to bring this one up because I thought this was kind of pertinent as well. But in a way, in some small way, it's kind of goes back to the whole COVID-19 thing as it pertains to our healthcare system. But once again, most of us in Canada already know that our healthcare system was already, waning and proven to be less than desirable in recent years, in recent decades. And it's only continued to get worse from then on till now. It just continues to slide into the point where, it's becoming very difficult, even for people like myself. I to be honest with you, that's another reason why I try to keep myself in great physical and mental health is, to be honest with you, I really wouldn't want to have to deal with any emergency or any major health problem for me or anyone that I care about at this particular junction, knowing just how fraught our healthcare system truly is. But anyways, just let me read a little bit from here. I don't think it'll last. How Canada's emergency room crisis could be killing thousands. As many as 15,000 Canadians may be dying unnecessarily every year because of hospital crowding, according to one estimate. So think about that. 15,000 Canadians per year may be unnecessarily dying because of hospital crowding, according to one estimate. So, because of the lack of proper infrastructure of our healthcare system, that once again, big government has been throwing billions and throwing money at the healthcare system in this country forever. So, it's not just about economic resources, folks. The whole incentive structure, the whole system is completely destroyed. Proper incentive, proper competence, and meritocracy. This is what socialism does. It destroys meritocracy, and it ushers in place of meritocracy, more pigs at the trough, more people, and especially when you're talking about a lot of diversity hiring, right? This is definitely degrading our healthcare system further than what it already is. So no, it's not a matter of throwing money at it. It's about completely revamping, or at the bare minimum in Canada, what Canada desperately needs is private sector alternatives. They need competition to show and lead the way, right? Because that's what the free market, that's what competition actually does, right? It increases the competency and manifests people with much higher skills, wherewithal, and competence in these kind of, no matter what part of the market you're talking about. But as important as healthcare is, that's what you want. You want people who are at the top of their fields and being properly rewarded by that based on actual market values, right? Rather than this one size fits all or flattening of the curve in terms of the healthcare field and healthcare personnel. No, that has shown to be a massive detriment. The proof is in the pudding. Once again, we need private options in Canada. That is desperately needed and necessary. So this was reported by Sharon Kirky, July 19th, 2024. But yeah, think about 15,000 per year. And then just think about how many people in Canada died from COVID-19. And if you're talking about per year, there are, some of the years that you could say the amount of people who are dying unnecessarily because of the failure of our healthcare system is higher in excess than even those who died from COVID-19, which we all know is predominantly those who are aged and elderly with multiple comorbidities, or with, compromised immune systems. Oh yeah, that's right too. I can't actually read this article, folks, because you only get so many free ones. And I am not, as of yet, once again, I've stretched my money pretty thin. I am supporting a lot of different platforms, and I'm like, I even support Stefan Molyneux over on Locals, and I donate to him, and I donate to the Libertarian Party periodically. I'm spreading what little bit of money I have around, but I don't have enough to actually at this particular point in junction to pay for Post Media, although that is something that I may very well do at some point in time in the future, so I don't have these kind of aggravations propping up from time to time, and I have full access to the articles, because that also would prove beneficial. Because that is one thing I will say, the establishment gets a lot of things wrong, but there's at least a few contributors in Post Media and some of their publications that do at least try in some way, in some regard, to push back against the dominant propaganda and the rhetoric spewed by many of their counterparts in the established media. And here, let me just cover this one more thing as it pertains to our charter rights and freedoms, and then I'll tie it up after this one, I believe. You folks are probably already familiar with this. So in addition to Brian Peckford and Maxime Bernier having their cases tossed by the Supreme Court, right? We're also seeing another example here as it pertains to Jordan Peterson, where, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in this country, not only is it dead, but it has been all along since its implementation, right? If you read Section 1, or even if you go to Section 33 and you see the notwithstanding clause, right? They basically have given themselves, when they wrote this, when they drafted this, and Peckford should have known this. And actually, I believe he actually said that he did kind of say he was against, the Section 1 thing in terms of, giving government the ability to pretend that your rights are not rights, but actually privileges, right? Because if you write in your charter that you have some legitimacy, or that you have any authority to override a person's inherent and inalienable rights for any reason, then you're basically suggesting that they're not inherent inalienable rights, and they're somehow perks or privileges, right? And yes, I've covered this kind of stuff many times in the past too. Just type in perks and privileges into my YouTube or Rumble channel, and you'll see those videos or those live streams pertaining to this stuff. But yes, of course, the charter is basically null and void at this point in time. And the charter by itself, even if it was tightly worded and a lot of this stuff wasn't contained within it, once again, something written on parchment paper or a screen cannot defend your freedoms. No, that rests and relies on all of us to stand up and be willing to do the right thing. That's the only way our freedoms, and to stand in full defense and defiance against government overreach of those freedoms. That's the only way they're maintained, folks. We all have to be vigilant, or at least the plurality, the majority of us, right, have to be vigilant in defending and showing our willingness to defend these freedoms. Because in the absence of that, they cease to exist, as we're seeing with absolute clarity these days. So this headline is Conrad Black, the charter is dead. Jordan Peterson's forced re-education proves it. The monster of the administrative state must be brought to heel. So this was reported by Conrad Black, August 17th, 2024. And once again, of course, I can't read that as well. But anyway, so that's another headline that I wanted you folks to see. And once again, I'm going to tie this live stream up. What are we at? 1:35. Yeah, that seems like a pretty good time. I'm just going to check a few more of your comments, though. I think you must have asked that question before I read. So hopefully you've seen the subsequent post that I read there. And like I say, at the very least, it looks like he's either hedging or maybe just sick and tired of things, and more than willing to now these days. Once again, I can't say with any amount of certainty, but based on that letter, and even based on the way he answered the questions when he was brought before Jim Jordan and those in Congress, is it seems like Zuckerberg's highly frustrated and getting more closely aligned to being something along the lines of Elon Musk in terms of pushing back against this massive government overreach. That, at least that's how it seems to me. Maybe. We sure hope so, GTO Mama. We sure hope so. I mean, right? It would kind of make sense, right? You definitely don't want to be on the side. Like if you're someone like Zuckerberg, you would have to think, do you really want to, even if you think the establishment may win out in the end, is that really the kind of people that you want to be aligned with, right? Do you not see how that can bite you in the proverbial ass? I'm sure Zuckerberg has seen that, and I'm sure he's already felt it a couple times, right? Oh, good one. A bird sings after the storm. Rose Candy quote. Good one. Our founding fathers screw us on the charter. Did they ever? Well, like I say, it definitely, by heaven, section 1 that you can invoke the Emergency Act or the notwithstanding clause, right? Or given any wording whatsoever that suggests that government has any capacity or any authority, right, to override, deny, or infringe on our rights. That, yes, that, as soon as any of that is written to anything, once again, and not to suggest that the charter is going to be the one thing that's going to defend your freedoms, but at the very least, you bare minimally, if you're going to have a charter, bare minimally, you have to have it written that's at least as airtight as the American Constitution in terms of properly laying out and explaining your inherent and inalienable fundamental rights and freedoms, right? And the fact that they shall not be infringed. That's really important. But yeah, our charter, the way it's written, the way it's worded, basically suggests that you don't have actual fundamental rights and freedoms. You have a bunch of perks and privileges that authoritarian mommy or daddy, aka big government, can take away at any time. And once again, not just at the federal level in terms of this stuff, even at the provincial level, they've given themselves carte blanche ability to deny or infringe our rights. So once again, that is something that definitely has to take place and be changed. And that is actually something that Pierre Poilievre, if the man was absolutely serious, right? And once again, I'm not going to start down talking smack about Pierre Poilievre, right? I'll save that for another time. But I mean, come on, if you want to show Canadians you're genuinely serious about the kind of stuff, that the rhetoric that you spew, and that you care about freedoms and all that stuff, and you care about the little guy, the working man, well, I mean, come on, start talking about redrafting the Canadian Charter Bill of Rights and Freedoms. Make that part of your platform. Make that emphasize that that's going to be one of the most dominant, maybe one of the first things you want to do if you become the next Prime Minister of Canada, is start the work of redrafting Canada's Charter Bill of Rights and Freedoms, right? That is something that should be a massive priority for anyone who wants to become the next, Prime Minister of this country. And that's what Pierre Poilievre, that's what he claims to be all about, right? And he does, once again, claim to be all about, stand in defense of freedoms and all that stuff. Well, once again, it's all empty rhetoric if you're unwilling to change or redraft the charter so that bare minimally it acknowledges our inherent and inalienable fundamental rights and freedoms and strikes out any opportunity that government can infringe on them in any way or any shape or form. That is a bare minimum. And that is something that, once again, if you've got the ear of Pierre Poilievre, right, or you're willing to draft a letter yourself and send it in if you're a conservative member, right, or a bunch of you, I highly recommend, I highly suggest any of you who are actual supporters or members of the Conservative Party of Canada to take the onus, that responsibility on yourself and start reaching out to Pierre Poilievre and his campaign or the people that's underneath them and let them know just how much you want to prioritize a redrafting of the Charter Rights and Freedoms to properly acknowledge, respect our inherent and inalienable fundamental rights and freedoms, and make that enshrined within the document and make it airtight so that at the very least, there's no way for politicians or political activists on the bench, aka Canadian judges, that can misconstrue or misrepresent or politicize that in any way that would benefit the state at the expense of our freedoms and our rights. That's something, like I say, really needs to take place. But anyways, I'm going to tie this live stream up, and I'll just mention that I really appreciate all you folks that join the stream. I really appreciate the kind words once again towards me and your level of support. I like I say, there's a bunch of you that are new here. There's some bunch of you that have been around forever, namely like your GTO Mama and Jim McCall and others. I'm really, once again, I appreciate every single one of you, and you folks really do inspire me. I might inspire you in some way, in some regard, and I'm glad that I do. But let me tell you, you folks inspire me as well, because I know that you are the kind of people that, if I when things get really bad, you are the kind of people that I know that I can rely on to be fellow voices out there in the void with me, right? And that you'll have my back and I'll have yours. All these things, they mean a tremendous lot to me, and I'm glad that you know that I'm there for you as well. That's what unity is all about. You do you, I do me. I'm not expecting you to be like me, and I hope you don't expect me to be like you. We're all individual. We're all sovereign individuals. We're all unique and have our own characteristics. But the one thing that should unify us and that we all share in common, and I believe we do, is our passion for individual freedom and liberty. And that there is the driver. That's the force that puts the fire under my butt. And I know it is what it does for you folks too. So once again, thank you for joining this live stream. I'm going to tie it up and I'll see you in the next one. It's the Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.